And it looks like we have connected. It says we are live on Facebook. Thank you, everyone who is out there joining us this afternoon. We are live from the Oxnard Police Department, the police station here in downtown Oxnard. And we're here to answer any questions you might have. We're on Facebook. If you're watching, you can join us with the live chat here right under the video. Looks like 9 of you are watching already. That's pretty great. Thank you again for joining us. I have the pleasure today of chatting with our public safety communications manager, Gaye Ward. She runs basically our communications, our dispatch center. And we wanted to come on and talk a little bit about a lot of recent calls, which is our fireworks problem that happens this time of year, pretty much, I mean, every year. But we also just wanted to give you a little introduction of Gaye and her position and kind of the operations, the basics of the operations of our dispatch center here at the police department. And again, take your live questions. So if you have any, hi Tito, go ahead and comment, interact with us live here. Roberta Zuniga, hi, welcome. And we will get to your questions as we can. But first of all, Gaye, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us, you are now the public safety communications manager, but you've been doing a whole lot more with the police department in your career. Can you tell us how it all began?
You can, I will. So I've been with the police department since 1998. I started as a line level dispatcher, went into the training program, did that for a few years, became a supervisor, and also did training for the new dispatchers and the new hires. And now I'm the interim communications manager I've been in the department for 22 years now.
Wow, and the whole time you're working in dispatch?
In dispatch and only at Oxnard PD.
Wow, that's you are quite a valuable asset to our department. And just let's start out with something very basic. Like if you were to break down what dispatchers do in the communication center in 5 minutes or less, how would you explain that to somebody?
Well, there are several aspects to being a dispatcher. One is that we handle all 911 calls coming into the center from the city of Oxnard. We also handle all the non-emergency lines in the city of Oxnard, including, not limited to, animal control, also for code compliance as well.
Yeah. And do we just have like an unlimited number of phone lines that we can answer as calls come in? How many people are answering the phones at any given time?
Okay, so at any given time, on the busier times, it's 5 to 6 people in the dispatch center. Not 5 to 6 people are answering the phones. 2 are radio operators. So we have 2 radio frequencies in dispatch. One is our primary frequency, the other is our secondary frequency. And then the others are call takers in the center. We have 11 911 lines coming into the center. And once those are clogged or full, it will ring busy. And then we have several different various business lines, which we have more business lines coming into the center.
And you say there's 11 911 phone lines. Is that only for police emergency or is it for just anyone who's dialing 911?
It's for anyone who dials 911 who has an emergency in the city of Oxnard. We also take calls of medical emergencies that then need to be transferred to the proper agency, which is Ventura County Fire.
And is there kind of a prioritization system within the phone system where if somebody's calling on non-emergency as opposed to 911, does one ring before the other one?
They have a different ringtone. I appreciate that question. They have a different ringtone so we can tell which line it's coming in on, but we are responsible for all the lines. We hold our dispatchers to a high standard. We like the lines to be picked up one ring or less. We don't like the lines to be ringing in dispatch. And then we do have a priority system that we classify what an emergency, maybe I should go into that, a shooting, a stabbing, a car accident, someone having their house broken into. That should be called in on 911. And then the non-emergency lines are for reporting things that we need to tend to or address. However, that shouldn't be called in on 911.
And do you get a lot of those on 911?
We do. We get a lot of people that call in on 911 and we will say 911 emergency and they will say, I'm not reporting an emergency. So if you do not have what we consider a life-threatening emergency, then you should be calling in on the business line, and those all ring over. So you should not be getting a busy tone when you call in on that.
Right. And a big part of what our call takers do in the dispatch center is they're trained to pretty quickly realize, be able to prioritize, have that skill of realizing what needs to be dealt with immediately and what can be put on hold. If somebody is calling in and they're not sure if it's an emergency or a non-emergency, what kind of questions can they expect? Like as soon as they call in, what are the first questions that are asked?
If you dial in on 911, it's what is your emergency? If you do call in on a business line, we will still ask, are you reporting an emergency? Because in reverse as well, there are a lot of people that will call in on the business lines that are reporting a true emergency that could have been addressed on 911, but they've called that. And so we don't want to put anyone on hold if they are reporting an emergency.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I worked in dispatch for the beginning of my career, and there were a lot of times where people would either call 911 and say, this isn't an emergency, the first thing they say, or they'll call the non-emergency line and they'll say, and we'll ask, are you reporting an emergency? And they'll say, no, I thought I called the non-emergency line.
Yes.
So a lot of times, yes, you were correct in doing that, but we just wanted to make sure that you didn't have something that needed to be, prioritized any differently than calling it on the correct line, which we really appreciate. So that's kind of a great segue into, and I appreciate the questions that are coming in live on Facebook. Thank you guys. Keep those coming if you have them. But that's a kind of a good segue into this whole issue that plagues us every year, which is this fireworks issue. And those 11 911 phone lines that we're talking about, and the how frequently sometimes that they do get bogged down by calls about fireworks. Do you want to just talk about fireworks briefly, just the basics between ways to report them?
Yes, I'd be more than happy to. So fireworks, what we are looking for at the police department is we are looking for, in order to give a citation to someone, we need to catch them doing it. The officers need to pull up while the fireworks are being lit off, started, however you'd like to refer to that. And in order to do that, we need a good location. Anytime you call in on 911, a location is essential. Just because you're calling on a cell phone, we may not know exactly where you're calling us from. So what we want to do is have the emergencies go to 911 and the non-emergencies can be reported several different ways. We have a fireworks hotline, and I'm sure you're going to put out that number, Paul. We also have our non-emergency line, and we also have an email address. So the best way is, if you are reporting fireworks, is if you know the address where the people are, give us that address and we'll send someone directly to that house. I also want to say you don't necessarily have to give us your address if you're uncomfortable doing that or thinking there may be a repercussion from your neighbors or the people you're calling in about. We can handle those calls without divulging that information.
Yeah, and pretty much anything can be, anonymous, right? Not a lot of people think, if I call my neighbors, they're going to know it was me, or whether it's for fireworks or for anything else. But the call takers in the dispatch center will ask for your contact information just in case the officers need to contact you in the future with any further follow-up questions. But of course, anytime you want to keep a call anonymous, you're welcome to.
Yes, that's correct.
And I know we put out an episode of Straight to You yesterday where Assistant Chief Sonstegard touched on what it takes in order for an officer to cite someone due to fireworks. And a lot of people get frustrated because, I see it all day on social media, or I get direct messages on Nextdoor of people saying, across the street on the corner, they do it all day or all night, every night. And like, you never arrest them. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? Officers can't just take your word for it.
Yes, that's something that they do need to see that's happening. And the one thing I didn't clarify, if you see it happening, please give us the best address, or even if you could give us a description of the house and the two cross streets and which street the house is on. But if you're just hearing them, and I know I also live in Oxnard, and it can be very loud at night when the fireworks start. And if you're just hearing them in the area, it's a little different how we will be responding for that. We'll be letting all the officers know continuously in the area where people are hearing them from, but we really would like to get addresses to send an officer to. I wanted to back up just a minute, Paul. I want to talk really quick about the way we prioritize calls, if I may.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Okay, so we deal with calls, we prioritize them depending on what type of call. Obviously, life-threatening emergencies is a high priority. It's a priority one for us. Then we have a second priority, which is someone might be attempting to break into a car, but they haven't quite made access. Then we have a priority 3. And we need to prioritize because we want officers to respond to emergencies. We want to stop someone from getting hurt. I'm not saying that fireworks are not important. I know they're very distressful. I have a dog who does not like to hear the fireworks either.
And you live here in the city.
I do. And what I would say is that we need to prioritize those just a little bit differently, because I will say since the beginning of June, the call volume, especially once it starts to get a little dark, has more than doubled than our regular call volume. So we do have emergencies coming in, but the phone lines are constantly ringing. So that's why it would be greatly appreciated if we could get the numbers you showed, like the fireworks hotline, the email. If you're hearing it in the area, if you're seeing it, please call the non-emergency number, because I would hate to think that we're putting people that have true emergencies on hold to deal with a fireworks. Although I get that the fireworks are important. I really care for people that are calling in that maybe have a medical emergency or need an officer right away.
Yeah, and it's so polarizing. It's so frustrating. People, it brings so much stress into the household if you have an animal that responds that way to it, or if you live with anyone who's especially disturbed by it, whether they're elderly or a military veteran with PTSD, and it's something that, like, it's so difficult. It can be such a challenge because of what we talked about, officers needing to see people lighting them or exactly where they're coming from in order for a citation to hold up. Otherwise, people could just point fingers all day and it wouldn't hold up in court. But unless an officer sees the person who is igniting the firework or sees exactly what residence it's coming from, it's a really difficult thing to pin down and cite for. But when we are able to cite, they do come with pretty big citation or pretty big fines. I know the ones classified as what's exactly the word for it? I can't remember.
Safe and sane.
Safe and sane, that's right. Those ones, even if a firework is classified as safe and sane, it comes with a $250 fine. And then the more dangerous ones are the $1,000 fines. But again, like, people get so stressed out about it. They want to see the people who are igniting them arrested and, like, spend time in jail, which is a whole different topic that we don't have time to discuss right now.
We should address that one right now.
Let's talk about zero bail. That's for another day. But yeah, I think I'll just jump into a couple of these questions here.
Great, let's listen to them. I'd love to hear what questions are coming in.
Yeah. So the first one is, how many people are employed in the Oxnard Communications Center? How many people work at one time?
Is that 2 questions?
I guess, yeah, but all from the same person.
We have staffing level. Our staffing level is 24. Our minimum, which is usually between, I'm going to say, the hours of 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning, is between, well, I should say to 2 o'clock in the morning. Between 5 and 6, our minimum is 4. Don't forget that also includes those 2 dispatchers that are working a radio as well. We do overstaff. We are currently, due to all the calls that we are seeing coming in, we are currently overstaffing the center to be able to handle all those calls. And we always, on the 4th of July, I have 7 positions in the center, and we staff them all the way up to the 7 positions that we have to make sure we can handle the calls coming in.
Now, you say overstaff. To me, that sounds like something like that just doesn't make sense in my brain because I know how generally understaffed we are as far as like working employees that are it's like we're always hiring, we're always looking to fill holes. Can you just talk about that for a minute? Like how many positions are open at any given time?
Well, do you mean the positions that we're hiring or the positions in the center? I think you mean the positions that we're hiring, correct?
Yes, yes.
Currently, I am hiring for dispatchers. So if you're interested, by all means, go ahead and apply. We'll do the testing. We have what we call a dispatcher, and we also have a call taker, kind of an entry level position. Get your feet wet coming into dispatch, and you just do call taking for your shift. Almost all 911 centers, not just in the state of California, but throughout the country, are extremely, extremely understaffed.
Mm-hmm.
There is never enough people. It takes a very special person to be able to do this kind of work. We work in a room, we work 24/7. We don't see you, but we're always here to help and to take any calls. And the dispatchers, I'd say most of them really enjoy coming in, and that's the part of the job that they like. They want to help people. That's what we all got into this business for, and to connect with the public. We never see you, but we're here, and we're always going to be here to pick up the phone when you need us.
Yeah, there really are the unsung heroes, like the first responders. It's the dispatch center is really the nervous system, or what makes the department work. They're taking the calls for service from our public that need our assistance, and at the same time we're sending officers to provide that service. And so really everything, all the operational day-to-day stuff that you see any officer that's driving around on the street is probably being sent somewhere by the dispatchers. So it's really the beating heart of the department on any given day.
Most of it begins with us. You're correct. The calls for service that the officers are responding to, almost all of them will come in through the dispatch center and will be screened through the dispatch center. We take approximately 350,000 calls a year in the city of Oxnard alone. We're a very busy center. We are the busiest in Ventura County. I would like to stack us up against any center. I think we have the best dispatchers and the best call takers here in the city of Oxnard. The training program is rigorous, and I don't know, I could go on and on about my people that work down there.
Really briefly, since you did mention that we are hiring and you mentioned training program, how does that training program work, real quick?
So if you get hired as a call taker, there's 16 weeks of call taker training, and then you go on to probation. You're released on the floor on your own. We're here to support you. Everyone in the center is here to support you. And as a dispatcher,
all paid training?
All paid. And as a dispatcher, once you get hired, you have a year of training, which will include call taking and then those two frequencies I spoke of, our band 1 and our band 2.
Yeah, it's intense. It's a good solid year, right? Gaylene was one of my
solid year.
She was one of my trainers when I was down there. She wasn't intense at all. She was.
We don't need to talk about that, Paul.
Next question I see is, it looks like it's from me. Will this be viewable on YouTube for those who don't have Facebook? Yes, absolutely. After we're done here, I will download it and then upload it to YouTube for sure. Sal Mendoza asks, why does it take up to 2 weeks for a post to hit the Spanish version of our Facebook page? Well, there are a lot of moving parts in the answer to that, but the main answer is we don't have staff that is dedicated to the Spanish Facebook page. The Spanish Facebook page is something we started on the first of the year this year, and it is mainly run by one of our commanders, Commander Lewis MacArthur, and any other volunteers around the station that are willing to translate any text or press releases and release them to the public. I'm also constantly working on doing any of the video releases that our department puts out, and we always try and keep up doing English and Spanish, but as I mentioned, we don't have dedicated positions within the department at this point to fully staff and run Spanish social media, but it is something that we thought would be valuable and wanted to offer to our city. So we're doing the best we can with that. Nicholas asks, what happens when a caller is non-responsive and hangs up?
That's a good question. So we call them back. If we're not able to get a hold of them, there are several different ways that we will do our best to find or pinpoint exactly where they're at. We can call the cell phone and have the cell phone trace, the cell phone company, excuse me. However, if you're not at home and you're using your cell phone, that's not going to be much help. We have a mapping system. There is a rapid SOS system that we use that helps to pinpoint where people are at. And we also use some prior contacts. If we have your phone number, we may look to see where we've contacted you before.
And it's a great question too, because a lot of people assume that as soon as they call the police, we know exactly where they are. And that's definitely, I think it's something people got from TV, but it's definitely not the case. We can
Not at all.
only ping a phone if we believe it's life or death circumstances, right? And it's just people assume that as soon as they call, their little map pops up and we see
Yeah.
them.
I would like that technology to come, but it's on the way. But yes, that's not the way that it works. That's why it's so important when we keep asking, where are you at? Where are you at? And what I've taught family members is, please, the minute you call, at least get out your location. So if anything happens or the phone dies, at least we know where you're at to start help.
Yeah. And we know people are frustrated, especially when we're answering those calls and they just keep saying, I'm right here. But
I'm at my house. I may not know where your house is.
help us help you. Michael asks, what kind of direction is our department receiving from management, city management, regarding the ongoing fireworks? It's a constant problem. Yeah, I think we're all just trying to make it better together. And as we mentioned, all the different challenges that from the policing side that it faces. It's something that we need to touch. We need to try and figure out a way to better connect with our neighbors in our neighborhood and kind of, I don't want to say self-police our neighborhood, but just kind of get whoever in your neighborhood is lighting them off to understand all of the stress that comes with it.
Yes.
I mean, there's no simple answer, and it's something we have to all work together on, unfortunately. Let's see what else is here. Would an officer be able to cite if the caller was able to capture someone lighting fireworks on video?
That's a good question. I am not a police officer. I don't want to speak out of term, but I don't believe so. I think it has to be witnessed, but I am not positive on that.
NC asks, how many Oxnard Police Department units are there? I think maybe the question is how many patrol officers are on each shift?
I don't staff the patrol, but I can tell you that it varies from, depending on what shift, 10 to 15 officers, and there's 3 shifts throughout the day. And then there's also the neighborhood policing team, there's sergeants, there's a lot of people, a lot of officers out there, but I don't do the staffing of the police officers.
But normally it's like, if the city's broken up into how many beats, and we have
8.
And we usually have 1 to 2 patrol officer in each beat, and there's 3 shifts a day. It's a tough question to answer.
Yes, that's not a very simplistic question to answer. I wish it was. I could just say there's always this many out there, but
yeah. Michael asks why we're doing this Q&A right now during the day and instead of at night when more people would be home watching. And another common answer that's coming up is staffing. We're doing it as we can based on the staffing of the police department. Can the Explorer program and code enforcement be stationed in active areas to watch for fireworks? Again, I don't know if that's a question for Gaye, Lynn. That's more of an operational
that
thing.
one I don't have an answer to. Good suggestion, though.
That is a great suggestion. I will definitely pass along to the sergeants that run those programs for sure, or at least the Explorer program. Code enforcement's a different department, but
Code compliance.
Code compliance. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie wants to know kind of the same thing as getting fireworks on video if they got a license plate of someone lighting it off. Um, I think it would still, the officer would probably still have to see it happen, right? Otherwise, it's just a he said, she said kind of a thing.
I hate to make that face, but that's not my area of expertise. I don't want to speak on that too much and say something that's incorrect.
Right, yeah. We are not officers. We are civilian employees trying to answer these questions. We don't know for sure the answer to that question, but you are welcome to speak. You know, if you call in and you want to speak to an officer or the watch commander, they can answer that more accurately for you. Let's see if we have any more. It looks like we've got just a few more minutes here. And thank you so much. Do we have Spanish-speaking dispatchers?
Yes, we do. And if by chance someone calls in and we do not have a Spanish speaking dispatcher, and that's a great question, whoever asked that, thank you. We do have a translation service that not only can we access Spanish, any language we can access through that service. And it is not dependent on how many dispatchers we have in the center that speak Spanish. And we always have that available. We use it regularly.
And we also actually have our first Mixtecan dispatcher speaking.
Mixteco?
Mixteco
Yeah.
speaking dispatcher.
That's correct.
I didn't know exactly what the term was. I'm sorry. But yeah, we've got translator lines for any language.
Yes.
And it looks like the last one we'll have time for here is how quickly is a medical call transferred to county fire, and do the police department dispatchers stay on the call when it is?
The minute that we find out it's a medical emergency, if it comes in on 911 and we know it's a medical emergency, we transfer it immediately. If you say, I need an ambulance, we say, just a moment, let me get you to the fire department. We stay on the line until we hear the fire department and we advise them that it is transferred from Oxnard. And then they take the call from there. We do not stay on the line at that point.
And I said that was the last question, but we do have one more. This one's from the Ventura County Fire Regional 911 Center.
Oh gosh.
And it is, how cool are the Ventura County Fire Department dispatchers?
They're the best.
They're so cool. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're a 10 for sure. So thank you guys for watching and joining us here live on Facebook. Thank you for this, Lynn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I hope we do more of these.
Yeah, and we wanted to just sit down and do this for a half an hour. It looks like some people maybe will have more questions in the future. If you do, go ahead and post them in this thread. We'll try and get to them as we can. And to answer everybody's question again, yeah, we'll get this up on YouTube. We can unfortunately just be live in one place, and I thought we'd reach more people here on Facebook. So, and this is the first time we've done this,
Yes.
and yeah, let's do it again sometime soon.
Okay.
Not just with other arms of the department, but with you as well, Lynn. This was really
I'd love
helpful.
to. We'll come up with some topics, and what would be really cool is if there's questions that people have on different topics. I would love that input where we could really talk to some of the questions people have.
Yeah, let's make this a regular thing.
Okay. This makes me really nervous.
I know she's been so nervous, but she's been so awesome, hasn't she, everybody? Great job. Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you once again, everybody, for joining us live.
Thank you for the questions.
Yes, and for those questions, have a great rest of your Wednesday.